Okay, thanks very much. First of all, thanks to Teagasc for inviting me here today to talk to you on the registering of farm partnerships and the requirements. I'll be sharing this session with Tom. Maybe a bit of a health warning at the start. What I'm going to go through over the next 15 or 17 minutes is very procedure, it's heavy stuff, it's complemented by some boring slides, so I hope you'll be able to last through it. I suppose we have taken over the registering of farm partnership. We're following on the tremendous work that Teagasc did with the milk production partnership through Ben, and following on with Tom and things like that. And what we are doing over the last 8 months since the 1st of April, we're evolving, we're learning. There's still some things we have to learn, and there's still some minute decisions that we have to make in relation to particular scenarios and circumstances. So I just put that in as a kind of a general over thing. So basically what I'm going to go through, I'm going to cover 3 areas fairly fast: the legislative side, the application process, and then I'll finish up with a small bit on the collaborative farming side. So see, does this work? I was going the wrong way. So I'm just going to give a very quick background first of all before we go into the thing. I'll just put them all up there. Obviously the milk production partnership ended last March with the ending of the milk quota regime. So we had to establish a new register. The one constant thing that was going there was as mentioned earlier on, the preferential stock relief for partnerships granted through the budget. So that needed a register in place for that to continue, so it was imperative that a register would follow through. In any event, it was a no-brainer to bring in a new register because partnerships had taken a foothold, albeit in the dairy sector, over the last 10 years or 15 years, and we would see partnerships as being, apart from these financial benefits that you get, they're hugely valuable in work-life balance, in economies of scale, in solving land mobility issues, and most importantly in the intergenerational transfer. So we established a new register. We did incredibly have a problem in finding a primary piece of legislation in which to bring in the new register, so we approached the Department of Finance and Revenue Commissioners, and they kindly allowed us to link it into the Taxes Consolidation Act, and I'll come back to that in a second. The new register became effective from the 1st of April 2015. We now have over 1,000 farm partnerships on the register. 550 are former MPPs. I know Bernie mentioned 800 there earlier on. Just to clarify that, there would have been 800 on the register at the time of the closing date for the BPS application, but they keep coming. A driver since then would be the TAMS and the GLOS and things like that. So we are over 1,000 farm partnerships on the register now. Many of the new partnerships are going across all enterprises. As you know, we've expanded out beyond dairying, but still the main ones we're getting are dairying ones. So just on the legislation, just before I go into it, we would have had to use the Taxes Consolidation Act, and one of the big things that we had to learn in that was that it's a finance piece of legislation, and it's very tight, very prescriptive, and we had to be very specific in a lot of the language that we were using. And for that reason, in the most recent finance bill, we brought in a lot of more or less tidying up issues rather than any major changes on it. So I'm just going to go through a few of the things that are kind of important in that. So the first thing is, and this is, the primary participant can apply to the Minister to put on a register. Primary participant, I will have to define that it has a more specific definition. I'll come to that. In order to go on the register, a farm partnership shall exist wholly for the purpose of carrying out the trade of farming. We want to make sure that these are credible farm partnerships, in other words, that they involve 2 partners involved in agriculture, and that the partnership shall have an agreement which will include identifying the partners, the land that's going into the partnership, the shares in the partnership, and the operation of the partnership. And the partnership must continue for 5 years. The partnership shall have at least 2 members and not more than 10 members. The second partner shall be a non-active partner. In relation to the partners, at least one shall be engaged in the trade of farming on farmland owned by that person. There has to be at least 3 hectares. At least one, the anchor farmer has to be a farmer for 2 years preceding the application for partnership. If there's only one anchor farmer, the other person then must be a natural person. The second person can't be a company. It has to have the appropriate agricultural qualifications, hold an entitlement to at least 20% of the profit sharing, and must be a non-active partner. Other than, sorry, just did a skip, other than an exclusive farm partnership, all of the land that partners own must come into the partnership. And I'll explain excluded farm asset now in a second. Just on the definitions then, a farm asset, partners bring their farm assets into the partnership, and the farm asset consists of farmlands, entitlements to common agricultural policy, livestock or machinery. I don't know if that's very visible there. It's probably sorry about that. Do I have time? Do I have time to put in the USB? No. Sorry. Or am I complicating it? No, we'll continue on. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll go through it anyhow. A farm asset, you bring in your farmland, your entitlement to your common agricultural policy payments, your livestock or machinery that's used for farming, but not any land that's caught by a CPO. Excluded farm assets, this is a new concept in the context of it. Because we had to be definitive in what land partners could exclude from a partnership by agreement. Now they're not obliged to exclude this, but if there's an agreement, they can exclude land on pig farming, poultry farming, mushroom farming, forestry, bloodstock farming, horticulture cropping, on-farm milk processing, or land used for the generation of electricity. So the point we're making there is that if the partnership decides to exclude certain piece of land, small piece of land, out of the partnership, they can do that. They apply to the Minister for permission to exclude that, but the types of land they exclude are very prescriptive, and they are contained in the new Finance Act. Farmland means all the land which includes a building other than the building that's used as a dwelling, all the land used occupied for the purpose of farming that land. A non-active farmer, which we have said that the second person must not be a non-active farmer. I know there's a double negative in there. The term non-active farmer is already in the Taxes Consolidation Act, so that's why we continue to use it. And a non-active farmer means an individual who spends not more than an average of at least 10 hours per week personally engaged in the farm partnership. So the principle there is you have your partnership where you have the anchor farmer, which generally is maybe a father or a mother, and then the second person it will be a person who has an agricultural qualification, who's getting 20% of the profit sharing and is spending at least 10 hours per week engaged in the farm partnership activity. So that's the concept. Primary participant, this is another slight change from what we've been working over the last couple of months. We would have asked people to nominate a person for correspondence, one of the partners for correspondence. Going forward from the 1st of January, we will be requiring that nominated person is the primary participant that would have been identified when they're registering for tax purposes. So we would obviously be asking, one of the new piece of documentation we'd be looking for is the letter you get from the Revenue Commissioners which identifies the primary participant, and that has to be, or which identifies the precedent partner, and that person has to be the primary participant. I don't think it causes a huge problem, but it's just merging our system with the requirements of the Taxes Consolidation Act. Some other small issues then, obviously all payments in the partnership go to the partnership account. A person cannot be a director of a company and an individual in the same partnership, and land in the partnership must not be more than 75 kilometres apart. Just on the application process then, very quickly, what we would like to see in the envelope when it comes into us is the farm partnership agreement, the land folios and leases, the confirmatory documents, in other words the education and the bank forms, the application form. We like to see the on-farm agreement. It's not a prerequisite for registration. Tom may mention later on how valuable a document it is, and then obviously use the checklist to validate all of these. Just some points that are in the farm partnership agreement that I've just taken out very quickly to focus on. Obviously you set out on and I'm talking here about the specimen agreement that we have up on our website and that Teagasc have, and this is very much the same. We've taken it from the agreement that was used and and established during the milk production partnership, and I know at that time a huge amount of work was put in by people, Ben and Donald and that, to make sure that that was as fit for purpose as you could possibly make it. So I suppose why we can't tell you, we like to see the ones where the specimen agreement is coming into us, because it makes it easier for us to look at and check, because we know where everything is. Now, that's not to say people, we do get other types of agreement and we have to go through them to make sure all the critical elements are in it. I will make a point here is that at the end of the day, even though we accept the farm partnership agreement and put that farm partnership on the register, the responsibility for ensuring the content of the farm partnership agreement rests wholly with the partners involved, and the department will not have any taken any responsibility in that area. So the partnership then is between the two people. We want to see that set out, and we see the herd number set out on it. The other areas then is point 61 of the specimen agreement sets out the name of the partnership. We want to see that filled in. Point 71, it sets out when the partnership starts and the term of it is. So we want to see that filled in, and if it's not filled in, we return it and contact them. Point 12.7, it sets out who shall authorise the withdrawals from the partnership bank account. Again, some people don't fill in that. We need that because our accounts branch ask us for confirmation of who's mandated to sign the accounts and things like that. So we would take that and dovetail it with the mandate that the partnership would send to our credit control branch in Cavan, and I'll just come back to that in a second. So 12.7 is an important point. You become aware of these very quickly, because when we get the partnership agreement saying if they're not filled out, we come back to you anyhow, and generally it only takes one return and then they're filled in subsequently. The notice, the dissolution element as well, it has to be for 5 years. Some people they put in periods less than that. So they were the main parts of the body of it. The schedules then, we need them to be filled in. Again, we don't check the veracity of the information in it, because we wouldn't know, but we do need them to be filled in. The first schedule on the agreement is the land that's been used, being put under licence into the partnership for each of the partners. The third schedule then is the capital that's coming into the partnership, that needs to be set out. The fourth schedule then is the non-capital resources that are coming into the partnership, and the sixth schedule then is the division of profits and losses. So we want all of those four schedules to be filled out in the partnership, and if they're not, we will be returning them back for to be filled up. Again, sorry about this being small, but anyhow, very quickly, it's the application form, which you're all familiar with. There's probably just a number of things there that I just want to highlight. Email address, we don't always get it now. We're quite conscious that all farmers may not have an email address, and we use the email address to communicate on the collaborative farming grant scheme. We send out the application to the farmer for the collaborative through the email system. The only thing I would say there is, if there's no email address, if you would just write down no email address, it stops us having to ring the farmers and ask them for an email address. It's not a huge thing, but just if there's no email address, no problem, we send it out in letter format. But if you just write in there, no email address. Farm partnership mobile number, again, is linked into the text alerts and things like that. And then the number of farms included in the partnership, I just want to clarify this one, it's the number of holdings. We use this for the GLOS scheme. In other words, as you know, GLOS is paid on the number of holdings that are in a partnership. So some people are getting confused here, they're counting number of fields or whatever, but we would see a holding as being an independent farm owned by somebody that would have been supported by the folios and the land leases that we would have got with the application. So the second part of the application then is just the details of each partner, and they're pretty straightforward there. And so you fill out that. The checklist then, just very quickly, the completed checklist, the application form, the bank details. We are just going to add on the bank details, when a partnership is formed, a separate form called a bank mandate, which we will be putting up on the website tomorrow for people, has to be sent to our accounts branch in Cavan in the credit control area. That then gets the payment through to now most of them done. We did a check on a lot of them and they're done, but for new partnerships, just to avoid any confusion, we will be adding in that a bank mandate has to be sent, so that the money is sent to the partnership account. It may have previously been under an individual farmer's account. that proof of off-farm income of 41 years of age, that was left on the website. We'll be taking that off, so that's why I just drew the lines over it. Copy of folios, copy of lease lands, and evidence of agricultural education. So they're generally the things that we want. Generally what happens then, just very quickly before I go on to the collaborative farming, we get the application in, we examine it, we check first of all with our client customer system, which we call CCS, to make sure that all the farmers in the partnership are on the herd number. In order for our system to interlink with all of the other ones, that Bernie and the payment side, the gloss, all of the farmers that are in a partnership have to be linked to the herd number. So we may on occasions have to ask farmers to fill out ER1 forms. A lot of them is done before it comes into us, so that all the names are on the herd number. We would then give that, establish the partnership, give it a partnership number. The structure of the partnership number is very easy. It's the county letter followed by the letters FP and then 00, and it starts at 100 right up along. And we also put the details of the primary participant, who from the 1st of January will be also the precedent partner on our system. And then we send a certificate out to the partnership then saying this is your farm partnership number, which you should use when you're claiming any schemes from the department. So that's the process. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. If we get all the forms in and all the papers in, we can do it fairly quickly. We do it in 2 to 3 weeks. And we are conscious when it's coming up to closing dates for schemes. We work hard to meet those requirements as people are contacting us. Just very quickly on the collaborative farming grant scheme, this is there to encourage new farm partnerships, to kind of cover costs involved in establishing new farm partnerships. It's 50% of the vouched legal, advisory and accounting costs up to 2,500, and the tranche 1 payments are hopefully going out in December. We're still working on them, and I'll just raise a few points on them now in a second. Tranche 2 then, we will be contacting all partnerships that came on the register from the 1st of July 2015 to the 31st of December 2015. We'll be contacting them in late January, sending them out the details about applying for the collaborative farming, which then will be paid in June 2016. Just on the collaborative farming, we've got a lot of receipts in and bills in, and we really have to work on this to try and get a consistent approach. We are getting costs for the same job, sometimes €200-300, other cases €2,000-3,000. We are getting our receipts from companies, professional companies, who, when we look back through the documentation, we don't see any evidence of that company being involved in the preparation of the work. We're getting receipts for issues like transfer of land or land-related issues which are not covered in the establishment of a farm partnership. And there are a number of things like that, and we are trying to, because it's the first run, to get a consistency and an understanding. So we will be going back to a lot of the farmers asking for more itemised details of the expenses, because the expenses that we will be covering are the accounting, the legal and the advisory related specifically to the establishment of the farm partnership, and we will be comparing them with each other, and it's not a question of what they ask for will be given, because we want to get it right. This is the first tranche of them, but we will be following through on them after that. So sorry about the other very quick thing. As you know, we're on the website and on the front page of the department's website. So sorry about the presentation, but thanks very much.
Thanks, John. Okay.